20 minutes to go. It's just not going to happen if the same happens again. Tom Bray.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, or thank you, Mr Hoyle. Can I say that, unfortunately, I don't share the same optimism as the member for North Shropshire does about how easy it's going to be to not have a border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. In relation to the Liberal Democrat amendments 144 and 147, I will perhaps park those on the basis that new clause 70, I think, is seeking perhaps more effectively than my amendments were doing to ensure that the Good Friday Agreement is honoured. And therefore, if the Honourable Lady, the member for North Down, does seek to push this to a vote, then she could also have me as a teller. I'm not sure what the collective for tellers is, but perhaps a troop of tellers would then be available to her should she want to press this to a vote. Now, I think she, in a very moving speech, illustrated why or the importance of the Good Friday Agreement and ensuring that it is not damaged in any way, and she did that with great credibility. And I think one point that she underlined was that the impact of a no deal on Northern Ireland could indeed be catastrophic, reckless and dangerous. Now, I was also very pleased to hear in her speech about the legal expertise that she has in relation to the European Union. Now, she may not have heard it because she was on her feet speaking at the time, but I think one of the DUP her DUP colleagues from a sedentary position said that explains a lot. I think it was a member for East London Derry who's no longer in his place. Now, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning that because, of course, what I'm sure he meant was that that explains why the Honourable Lady had as much in-depth legal knowledge about the European Union as she was clearly demonstrating in the debate, and I'm sure his comment didn't intend to mean anything disrespectful. And she indeed has set out in a course of many debates in this place her expertise on this matter. Now, in the contribution from the member for North Sea Fife, I think he referred to the role that the Scottish and Welsh governments have played in terms of engaging all parties in the process of drawing up amendments. And I very much welcome that. I'm very aware of that. And I agree with him entirely that that is something that, unfortunately, is not being reciprocated by the government, our government, in this place. I made a very generous offer to the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union. I offered to sit down with him and go through the Liberal Democrat amendments, because I'm sure they could help him in seeking to achieve some improvements to this bill. I made that offer, a very generous offer, on the 24th of October, and I'm still waiting for a reply. So I do hope that, if the government wants to engage, the willingness is there. They just need to respond positively to it. Now, the Minister, in his remarks, said that the government are very committed to the Good Friday Agreement, and I take him at his word. I think he, as a minister, says what he means and means what he says. I'm not sure I could necessarily say that for all the other members of the government front bench, but I think I take him at his word. I think he could demonstrate that simply by putting this on the face of the bill. If indeed it is declaratory, well, we do often have in this place declaratory legislation. I think the 0.7% for gross national income for international development is perhaps an example of declaratory legislation that I think members would support. So I will listen. I have listened carefully to the Minister. I will indeed support the Honourable Lady, the member for North Down, if she chooses to push this to amendment. But I think one thing is certain, that whether or not the European Union is mentioned or referred to in the Good Friday Agreement, it is very clear that what the government do in relation to the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland has a very, very heavy bearing on the ability of Northern Ireland to retain the peace and relative peace and prosperity that is experienced in recent years. And I will not be pushing my amendments to a vote. Thank you, Mr.